The corner office on the top floor of Holloway Distributions looks out over a heavy, pewter sky. The city below is vast and silent. Clara Holloway stands behind the massive walnut desk. Her blonde hair is immaculate, her features carrying the chilling stillness of an empire's air. 3 steps away stands Daniel Reeves. His broad shoulders fill the dark blue flannel. He holds the quiet posture of a man accustomed to storms. Her voice is measured, completely devoid of warmth. She informs him that the company demands absolute discipline, and his presence is no longer required. Daniel does not defend himself. He looks at the icy woman across the desk for exactly 3 seconds. There is no visible anger. It is the profound, quiet observation of a man marking a moment he will not forget. Slowly, he gives a single, deliberate nod. Without a word of protest or a plea for understanding, he turns on his heel and begins the long walk toward the exit. The heavy mahogany door clicks shut behind him. The sudden silence in the cavernous office is absolute, heavy, and almost deafening. Clara stands perfectly still. For the first time that morning, her perfectly manicured fingers tighten against the cold walnut wood, knuckles turning pale. She reaches out to pour a glass of ice water, a faint, inexplicable tremor visible in her hand. She does not take a sip. Daniel walks through the vast warehouse floor for the last time. The rhythmic hum of machinery feels like a heartbeat he is no longer a part of. His eyes move over the familiar crates and steel beams. He carries no bitterness, only the heavy weight of a life built on honest labor. Near the loading bay, Frank Delaney, a veteran of 20 years, stands waiting. The older man's face is etched with the lines of shared winters. Neither man speaks. A silent, powerful nod is exchanged, a pact of solidarity between those who truly keep the world moving. Outside, the Boston wind is sharp and unforgiving. Daniel reaches his weathered Ford pickup, its silver paint dulled by years of salt and grit. Inside the quiet cab, the world slows down. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, worn photograph framed in simple silver. Emma looks back at him, 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could melt the fiercest winter. She is his North Star. With a steady hand, he writes 3 numbers on a crumpled napkin: rent, savings, and the cost of Emma's art classes through the summer. He folds the napkin carefully, sliding it into his leather wallet. His jaw tightens, a silent promise made to the only person who matters. The engine roars to life, a low, mechanical growl against the gray sky. He drives out of the lot, leaving the Empire behind him. Back in the quiet of the executive suite, Richard Vance steps into Clara's office. He is a man who wears his ambition like a tailored suit. He slides a printed spreadsheet across the walnut desk. His smile is polished, a practiced mask hiding the calculated manipulation of numbers in the dark. Vance softly praises Clara for her decisive leadership, reinforcing the very illusion he spent months carefully crafting. Clara looks down at the paperwork. She nods in agreement, yet her icy blue eyes reveal a lingering, unspoken doubt she cannot simply brush away. Hours later, Clara sits at a long dining table in an upscale Boston restaurant. The board members around her raise their crystal glasses in celebration. The conversation is lively, yet she remains entirely disconnected. The silent departure of the man from the morning haunts the empty space beside her. Outside the floor-to-ceiling restaurant windows, the sky darkens drastically. The first heavy drops of a freezing rainstorm begin to lash against the glass. Night falls completely. Clara drives her luxury vehicle north along a desolate stretch of Route 7, seeking solace in the isolation of the dark. The storm intensifies violently. Freezing rain lashes against the windshield as the wiper blades struggle frantically to keep up with the deluge. Without warning, a red light flashes on the dashboard. The engine coughs violently, and the headlights flicker against the encroaching, suffocating darkness. The heavy SUV coasts to a dead stop onto the muddy shoulder of the dark road, coming to rest under a street lamp that has been broken for years. Clara frantically twists the ignition key, but receives only silence. She checks her phone. No signal. The crushing reality of her vulnerability sets in. Pushing against the fierce wind, she steps out into the freezing rain. Her designer heels instantly sink deep into the cold, unforgiving mud. She raises her hand, waving desperately at passing headlights. A white sedan speeds by without slowing down, blinding her momentarily with its high beams. Another car passes, then a heavy truck. The roaring engines completely drown out her presence. She counts them, feeling profoundly and utterly invisible. The luxurious wool of her blazer is completely soaked, clinging heavily to her freezing skin. The empire she commands means absolutely nothing out here. Just as a bitter despair begins to settle in her chest, a pair of dim headlights slows down from the south, cutting slowly through the deluge. A weathered silver Ford pickup pulls off the asphalt, its tires crunching on the wet gravel, stopping just a few feet away from her shivering figure. The driver's door creaks open. A man steps out into the violent storm. The glaring headlights catch the unmistakable shape of his broad shoulders. He steps closer, revealing his rugged face. It is Daniel Reeves. The two lock eyes through the freezing downpour, the silence between them louder than the storm. Daniel does not gloat. He does not mention the morning. He simply looks at her, his expression as steady and unreadable as ever. Without a word, he walks past her to the hood of the luxury SUV, propping it open under the freezing, torrential downpour. He inspects the engine with the narrow beam of his flashlight for a long moment before closing the hood with a heavy thud. He informs her that the vehicle cannot be fixed here. He offers to take her back to the city, his voice cutting clearly through the storm. Clara hesitates, her corporate pride instinctively fighting the bitter cold. Seeing her violently shiver, Daniel simply shrugs off his heavy tan canvas coat. He holds the thick, warm coat out to her. He does not force it, merely offering a silent choice between freezing and accepting grace. She takes it. The oversized fabric envelopes her, smelling of clean motor oil and the deep, honest scent of a man who builds things with his hands. Clara climbs into the dark, quiet back seat of his weathered pickup truck. The immediate contrast to the freezing storm outside is overwhelming. Looking forward, she sees the passenger seat is occupied. A young girl is fast asleep under a fleece blanket, clutching a crayon drawing. Daniel slides into the driver's seat, now wearing only his damp flannel shirt. He puts the truck in gear and slowly pulls back onto the dark road. For 18 minutes, Daniel drives meticulously. He stays well under the speed limit, making no hard stops to ensure the sleeping child is undisturbed. Clara sits quietly in the back, pulling the thick collar of the heavy canvas coat close against her face, finding solace in its warmth. She looks closer at the drawing resting on Emma's lap. It depicts three figures, a man, a small girl, and a woman who is clearly absent. A crushing realization strikes Clara like a physical blow. If she hadn't acted with such cold haste this morning, this child would be asleep in her own bed. Suffocated by an immense weight of guilt, Clara turns her face away toward the rain-streaked window, desperately fighting back the tears burning in her eyes. The truck finally pulls up to the imposing granite steps of Clara's high-end apartment building on Battery Street, stopping but leaving the engine running. Clara reaches to remove the coat. Daniel looks at her through the rearview mirror and quietly tells her to keep it until the cold passes. She steps out into the freezing rain. Before shutting the door, she speaks her only sentence of the entire journey, "Thank you, Daniel." He offers a single, dignified nod. The red tail lights of the weathered pickup dissolve into the heavy storm, leaving Clara completely alone in the dark. She does not go inside. Sinking onto the wet stone steps of her luxury building, the invincible heiress buries her face in the oversized coat and weeps. Clara does not sleep. At 6 in the morning, the city is still dark as she rides the glass elevator up to the 8th floor. She walks into her office, still wearing yesterday's clothes beneath the heavy tan coat. Her mind is racing with unanswered questions. Down in the grand corporate lobby, the advisory board members begin to arrive for the quarterly morning session. General Howard McKinley, a 74-year-old retired 3-star general, strides through the doors. His posture is rigid, commanding instant respect. He pauses abruptly at the digital staff directory mounted near the reception desk. The screen slowly rotates through recent corporate updates. The display flashes a new notification: contract terminated, Daniel Reeves, operations. The general stares at it in absolute, stony silence. He turns slowly to the young receptionist. His voice is quiet but carries the heavy, unbending authority of a battlefield commander. He asks if Miss Holloway understands exactly who she just dismissed. The receptionist blinks, stammering in utter confusion. General McKinley's expression hardens into grim resolve. He demands a private audience with Clara immediately, before any board meeting begins. Meanwhile, upstairs, Clara sits alone at her massive desk. She stares at the spreadsheet from yesterday, a cold, calculating suspicion finally taking root. General McKinley enters Clara's office. He refuses the offer of coffee, sitting opposite her with his hands folded heavily on his knee. He looks at her directly, informing her that the man she terminated is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Reeves, a highly decorated logistics commander. McKinley explains that Daniel stepped away from his military career because his wife was fading away, choosing a quiet life to be a father. Clara is momentarily stunned. Reclaiming her composure, she slides Vance's spreadsheet across the desk, insisting she had to rely on the attendance records. McKinley glances at the paper without touching it. He states quietly that in 40 years of service, he has learned to read a man's true character. He stands up to leave, looking down at her. He advises her to verify the numbers herself, and more importantly, to trust what she saw last night. The words "last night" send a cold, sudden shiver down Clara's spine. The general buttons his suit jacket and walks out of the room. Clara is left alone in the morning light. The pieces of Vance's deception are finally beginning to align in her sharp, calculating mind. Her hesitation vanishes. She presses the intercom button on her desk, her voice no longer defensive, but sharp, lethal, and fully in command. She orders her assistant to summon Margaret Doyle from HR immediately, demanding the raw, unedited data files. The hunt for the truth has begun. 11 minutes later, Margaret Doyle from Human Resources arrives. She is a woman who carries the profound stillness of someone who watches everything. Margaret quietly sets a small, unmarked USB drive on the walnut desk. She admits she has been safeguarding this raw data for months. Clara plugs the drive into her terminal. The raw numbers illuminate her face, presenting a cold, undeniable truth that contradicts everything Vance claimed. The system access log reveals the intricate deception. Richard Vance had silently logged into the database 14 times over the past 3 months. Each edit was executed perfectly to manufacture a flawless narrative of incompetence against a man who never once raised his voice in defense. Clara asks Margaret why she kept the hidden data. Margaret softly replies that the difference between a good and bad company is whether the truth remains recoverable. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of her blind mistake, Clara stands up from her desk and walks slowly toward the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. She looks down at the sprawling warehouse loading bays, 8 stories below. The workers move like tiny gears, keeping her vast empire alive. She watches a lone forklift operating in the pale fluorescent light. She wonders if the driver is Frank Delaney, the veteran who stood by Daniel. Clara rests her forehead against the freezing glass. The apology she owes is immense, and the silent retribution she plans for Vance will be absolute. Clara stays in her office through the night. At 10 minutes to 7 the next morning, a heavy, deliberate knock echoes through the thick wood door. Frank Delaney steps into the executive office. He wears his green warehouse coveralls, holding a small, bourbon-colored leather notebook in his weathered hands. Frank steps forward and lays the notebook on her desk. Its edges have been worn pale by 20 years of being carried in a back pocket. He explains that every line is a handwritten record of arrival times. The immaculate entries completely shatter the false narrative Vance constructed. Frank points a thick, calloused finger to 3 specific dates. He took my night shifts because my knee gave out. He arrived 12 hours early, not late. Clara closes her eyes. The staggering weight of Daniel's silent sacrifice, his absolute refusal to complain or demand recognition, crashes heavily into her conscience. Frank states he has been ready to give this testimony for 18 years, just waiting for a true leader to ask. With a firm nod, he leaves. Clara wastes no time. She immediately summons the corporate council, and within hours, they uncover Vance's hidden financial stake in a rival logistics firm. By noon, the trap is fully set. Clara stands by the window and dials a number from the employee file. Daniel answers on the 3rd ring, calm as ever. Clara tells him she is coming to his home that afternoon. She owes him an apology that cannot simply be delivered on corporate paper. At 3:45 that afternoon, Clara stands on the small concrete landing outside Daniel's modest apartment in South Burlington. She holds a manila envelope tightly. Inside is a reinstatement contract, a handwritten apology, and the legal report exposing Richard Vance. Before she can even raise her hand to knock, the door swings open. Emma stands there in a comfortable sweatshirt with a small fox on the front. The little girl's eyes go wide with instant recognition. "You are the lady from the back of Daddy's truck," she says with absolute certainty. Clara opens her mouth, but no words come out in time. The formidable corporate leader is entirely disarmed by the child's bright innocence. Without a moment of hesitation, Emma reaches up, takes Clara's manicured hand in her small one, and gently pulls her inside. The apartment is small, warm, and immaculately clean. A folded blanket rests on the worn couch, and framed school photographs line the wooden shelves. On the refrigerator, held up by colorful magnets, are 30 children's crayon drawings arranged in a remarkably neat and careful grid. 29 of the drawings show 3 people. The 30th, taped to the very center, shows only 2 figures standing under a large maple tree. Daniel steps out of the kitchen, drying a dish with a cotton towel. He stops, seeing Clara standing in his living room, looking entirely out of place yet welcome. Daniel folds the kitchen towel over his broad shoulder. He shows no shock, only his signature, steady calm. With a slight nod, he gestures toward the small dining table. Clara takes a seat. She slides the thick manila envelope across the smooth wooden surface, laying out the undeniable truth of Richard Vance's elaborate deception. She explains that Vance personally falsified every single attendance record and is secretly attempting to route corporate contracts into his own hidden firm. She tells Daniel she did not come because the board forced her hand, but because he deserved an honest apology in his own home, without an audience. Daniel looks at her for a long, silent moment. He glances down at the heavy envelope resting on the table between them. He does not reach for it. With profound quietness, he simply announces he will make tea. He stands up and retreats to the kitchen, leaving the lucrative contract completely untouched. Emma, sitting comfortably on the living room carpet with her drawing pad, looks up at Clara. She pats the floor next to her, offering an innocent invitation. Clara, a woman accustomed to elite global forums and governors' dinners, pauses. Then, she slowly slides out of her expensive designer shoes. Stepping away from the adult world of corporate betrayals and contracts, the powerful heiress lowers herself onto the soft carpet of the small suburban apartment. Emma immediately scoots closer, beginning to show Clara her colorful drawings in order, explaining her innocent view of the world with utmost seriousness. Emma points to the drawings with a small crayon. She explains that the tall man is Daddy, the small girl is Emma, and the woman with long hair is her mother. She tells Clara that her mother lives in heaven now. She used to draw all three of them every single day since the departure 3 years ago. Clara gently asks why the newest drawing on the refrigerator only has 2 figures. Emma pauses, considering the question with the heavy seriousness of an adult. Emma explains that she stopped drawing her mother because seeing the pictures made her daddy sad, and she wanted to protect him from the pain. Clara's icy corporate exterior shatters completely. Warm tears fill her eyes as the profound, silent sacrifice of an 8-year-old breaks her heart. From the kitchen, Daniel stands in the archway, holding 2 steaming cups of tea. He quietly watches the powerful CEO weeping on the floor with his daughter. He does not interrupt. He walks over, sets the tea down next to the forgotten manila envelope, and slowly sits down on the carpet beside them. The 3 of them stay there until the tea goes cold. Emma eventually falls asleep, her cheek resting peacefully against her drawing pad. Daniel lifts the sleeping child without a sound. He carries her down the hallway to her bedroom, leaving Clara sitting alone among the crayons. He returns and stands in the doorway. He tells Clara she didn't have to apologize in person, he would have read the letter. Clara looks up and simply says, "I know." Monday morning, 7 o'clock. The executive boardroom is full. 9 powerful members sit around a massive oval table of polished oak. Richard Vance sits confidently at Clara's right hand. He wears a sharp charcoal suit and offers her a polished, victorious smile. She does not smile back. Clara stands at the head of the table. Without preamble, she announces a severe personnel and disclosure matter. The room falls dead silent. She signals the projector. The first slide illuminates the dark wood walls, 3 months of raw, unedited attendance data. The second slide appears. It is a detailed system access log, highlighting 96 direct edits to the corporate database. The third slide reveals the administrative account responsible for every single alteration. The badge number belongs exclusively to Richard Vance. Vance's confident smile instantly vanishes. He sits forward abruptly, loudly declaring the logs are a complete forgery designed to frame him. Clara remains utterly unbothered by his outburst. She clicks to the 4th slide, high-resolution scans of Frank Delaney's handwritten notebook. The 5th slide is the final blow. It exposes Vance's undisclosed 8% financial stake in the logistics firm bidding for their contracts. Vance is no longer smiling. His face twists in panic and rage. He desperately claims the testimony of a lowly warehouse worker has no legal standing. The heavy double doors at the back of the boardroom swing open. The chaotic arguments instantly cease as every eye turns toward the entrance. Daniel walks in first. He wears the same dark blue flannel shirt and heavy tan canvas coat, looking completely unfazed by the wealth around him. Right behind him walks Frank Delaney, wearing his freshly pressed green warehouse coveralls, carrying the quiet dignity of a man who knows the truth. General McKinley follows them in. He remains standing at the back of the room, his voice echoing with absolute military authority. The general addresses the board. He states that Sergeant First Class Frank Delaney served 22 years in the United States Army with unquestionable honor. McKinley declares that Delaney's written testimony is, to him, an ironclad legal document, and he will sign a sworn affidavit to that effect today. Vance stands up frantically to interject. Before a word leaves his mouth, 2 senior board members beside him motion sharply for him to sit down. The board moves to vote immediately. It takes exactly 4 minutes. The result is 8-1, immediate termination for cause. The corporate counsel steps forward and calmly demands Vance's employee badge. Vance opens his mouth to speak, but realizes he has completely lost. Shaking with humiliation, Vance drops his corporate badge onto the polished oak table and walks out of the boardroom in absolute defeat. As Vance storms out, Margaret Doyle quietly walks into the boardroom. She places a thick, sealed folder directly in front of Clara on the oak table. It is Daniel's complete personnel record. Every commendation, every redacted military detail that Margaret quietly safeguarded until a true leader finally asked for it. Daniel remains standing quietly against the back wall. His hands are clasped firmly behind his back in a military posture he has carried since he was 22. He does not look triumphant or smug. As the boardroom slowly empties, he looks across the long oak table directly at Clara. Clara meets his steady gaze. Without a word, she gives him a single, profound nod of respect. Daniel returns the exact same silent nod. No one else in the room notices the exchange. They do not need to speak. The corporate war is over, but their true story is just beginning. 6 weeks pass. The first heavy snow comes to Boston in early November, painting the industrial gray of the city in stark, pure white. Daniel is officially reinstated and promoted to Director of Operations. Yet, he still drives the exact same weathered Ford pickup to work every morning. He still eats lunch in the warehouse break room with the forklift drivers, wearing his dark blue flannel beneath a brand new corporate badge. Meanwhile, Frank Delaney's small leather notebook now rests in a glass display case outside Clara's office, a permanent reminder of the absolute power of truth. On a cold Saturday in mid-November, the local community center hosts a small children's art exhibition near the waterfront. Emma had quietly used her school printer to send a secret, hand-addressed invitation directly to Clara's corporate office. At the bottom of the envelope, written in careful, slightly uneven pencil, were the words, "Please do not tell my dad." Clara arrives exactly 10 minutes early. She wears a soft, camel-colored winter blazer, looking elegant but completely approachable in the modest hall. Across the crowded gymnasium, Daniel sees her. His face does the small, imperceptible thing it always does, a slight pause of profound acknowledgement. He nods at her from across the room but does not walk over. Instead, Emma spots her and excitedly runs across the floor. Emma takes Clara's manicured hand and eagerly leads the powerful CEO to the far wall where her 3 specific drawings are proudly displayed. The first 2 drawings are remarkably ordinary, a simple house with a chimney and a sleeping cat in a window. But the third drawing is entirely new. It shows 3 figures standing together under a large, red maple tree. The third figure is a woman with bright blonde hair, standing slightly apart but reaching her hand out toward the father and daughter. After the exhibition, the 3 of them walk together along the wooden boardwalk of the Boston waterfront. Daniel keeps his hands deep in his coat pockets. The ocean water beside them is still and steel-colored under the overcast winter sky. They walk for 40 minutes, speaking perhaps 8 sentences in total, mostly about the freezing weather and the boats docked for winter. At one point, Emma runs ahead to the edge of the wooden pier, excitedly trying to look at the geese gathering near the water. She comes running back to Daniel, her small hands carefully cupped together, absolutely certain she has caught something incredibly rare. Daniel kneels down on the cold wooden boards. With impossible gentleness, he admires the invisible treasure she has brought him. Clara watches him do it. She observes the quiet, profound patience of a man who has practiced grief and actively chosen to remain gentle. A single mallard duck suddenly flies low over the steel-colored water, its wings cutting sharply through the freezing air. Daniel watches the bird's flight. Half to himself, his voice barely above a whisper, he murmurs, "Sarah liked the geese in the fall." He does not say anything else for a long time. Clara does not pry, allowing the sacred memory of his wife to rest peacefully in the cold air. At the end of the walk, near the icy asphalt of the parking lot, Clara stops and reaches into her elegant leather bag. She takes out Daniel's heavy tan canvas coat. It is freshly washed and carefully folded, brought with the intention of finally returning it. Daniel looks down at the folded fabric, then looks up at her. He takes the heavy coat in his rough hands for a brief second. Gently, but with absolute firmness, he presses the coat back into Clara's hands. "Keep it, Clara," he says. "The city is only going to get colder." This time, she does not argue. She holds the rough canvas against her chest, a physical anchor to his protective warmth. Emma runs past them toward the weathered pickup truck, calling happily over her shoulder about wanting a cup of hot chocolate. Daniel follows his daughter with his eyes. He turns back to Clara, pausing for a long second as if he might finally say something more. He does not. Instead, he simply gives her the exact same small, dignified nod he gave her on the day she handed him his termination. Clara stands entirely alone in the freezing parking lot, holding the coat as she watches the red taillights of the pickup fade into the winter dusk. By March, the bitter winter finally breaks. The heavy snow melts, and Daniel moves into a small, three-bedroom house with a fenced backyard in the suburbs. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Daniel stands in the fresh spring air, steadily repairing the wooden fence of his new backyard. A crisp white Subaru pulls into the driveway, replacing the luxury SUV from the storm. Clara steps out into the bright sunlight. She opens the passenger door and carefully lifts out a small, potted sugar maple sapling, its tiny buds ready for the season. Emma bursts through the back door, her face lighting up with absolute joy as she runs across the lawn to greet them. A secret text message sent the previous Wednesday had initiated this, Emma quietly asking Clara to bring a tree that turns red. Clara, dressed in elegant but casual spring clothes, kneels directly in the soft dirt, unbothered by the earth staining her knees. Together, the powerful corporate heiress and the 8-year-old girl dig a small hole, carefully settling the young roots into the ground. Emma uses both of her small palms to gently but firmly pat the fresh soil down around the thin, fragile trunk. From inside the house, Daniel stands quietly at the kitchen sink. He watches them through the glass window, a dish towel in his hands. He does not interrupt. He simply watches the two most important figures in his life anchoring a new beginning into the earth. Over the next 6 months, Clara becomes a quiet but constant presence in their lives. She arrives at the small suburban house every Sunday. Sundays become a silent, unbreakable tradition. She no longer waits for a formal invitation, stepping into their home as if she has always belonged there. The powerful corporate CEO spends her afternoons sitting at the small wooden kitchen table, patiently helping Emma with her reading homework. Daniel watches them from the living room couch. His trademark stoicism softens into a deep, unspoken appreciation for the woman reading with his daughter. On a rare Saturday off, Daniel visits Clara's luxurious downtown apartment. He arrives wearing his dark blue flannel, carrying a worn canvas tool bag. He silently fixes a misaligned cabinet door in her high-end kitchen. His capable, calloused hands work the screwdriver with familiar, steady precision. In return, Clara makes spaghetti. It is a humble, slightly messy meal, a stark contrast to the elite fine dining she is accustomed to. Emma sits at the massive marble counter. Without being asked, the 8-year-old carefully sets 3 plates, establishing a new, undeniable dynamic. No one rushes to give this evolving connection a formal name. There are no dramatic corporate declarations or grand romantic gestures. It is simply a shared, steady rhythm of life, a profound healing built entirely on quiet actions, mutual respect, and undeniable trust. Summer arrives in New England, bringing warm, gentle breezes to the small suburban house. The newly planted maple tree begins to stretch its green leaves. It is Emma's 9th birthday. To celebrate, the 3 of them travel to a quiet, secluded wooden cabin overlooking the still waters of a grand lake. Sitting on the sunlit porch, Clara presents Emma with a carefully wrapped gift, a professional, leather-bound sketchbook and a set of artist-grade pencils. Emma's face lights up. She throws her arms around Clara in a tight, genuine embrace, which Clara returns with fierce, protective warmth. Later that golden afternoon, Daniel quietly asks Clara to walk with them. They head toward a peaceful green hill overlooking the water. They arrive at a quiet memorial park. It is Sarah's resting place. Clara does not hesitate, nor does she step back from the heavy moment. Daniel kneels slowly to clear the grass, while Emma gently places a colorful new drawing against the base of the polished gray stone. Clara steps forward with quiet grace. She respectfully lays a single, perfect white rose next to the drawing, offering a silent vow of honor. Daniel stands up and looks at Clara. The immense, solitary weight of his past is finally being shared, understood, and embraced without condition. For the first time, Daniel reaches out. His calloused fingers gently find Clara's hand, holding it firmly as they stand together in the fading sunlight. They walk down the green hill together, their hands still intertwined. The heavy shadows of the past finally give way to the quiet grace of the present. By evening, they return to the small suburban house. The porch light casts a warm, welcoming glow against the deepening twilight. The three of them sit around the small round table in the kitchen. Daniel cuts a loaf of bread while Emma tells a story. A single candle burns on the table. The light is yellow, ordinary, and profoundly safe. There is no need for grand declarations. Halfway through dinner, Emma climbs down from her chair. She stands in front of Clara and asks if she knows how to braid hair. Clara admits she hasn't braided hair in 20 years. Emma simply turns around, waiting with absolute, unwavering trust. Daniel watches from across the table. His bread knife rests on the edge of his plate as he quietly observes the woman and his daughter. Clara weaves the soft blonde hair. It is slightly uneven, but Emma does not care. She inspects her reflection in the dark window and beams. No one says the word love. No one says the word family. The steady, quiet rhythm of their shared evening speaks louder than any vow. Outside in the cool night air, the young sugar maple stands firmly in the soft dirt, its roots deepening, patiently waiting for tomorrow.